Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of the wild world of corporate filings. Today we're peeling back the layers of an annual proxy statement from Tron Inc. Now this filing is like a yearly checkup for the company, telling us about their leadership, how much they're paying their top brass, and what big decisions are coming up. Think of it as peek behind the curtain of who is really running the show and what they're earning while doing it. Before we dive in, if you like getting straight answers from these documents and want to stay ahead of the game, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And hey, we've got a thriving community on Discord where we break down these filings even further. Join us. The invite is in the description below. So what exactly is this document? A Schedule 14A. It is basically Tron Incorporated telling the US Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, that they are sending out their proxy statement to shareholders. This statement is super important because it explains everything shareholders need to know before they vote on important company matters. Like electing directors or approving auditor appointments, it is all about transparency and making sure you, the shareholder, have the information to cast your vote wisely. This is official business. Tron is filing this statement because they are asking shareholders to vote on things at their upcoming annual meeting. The meeting is scheduled for the 16th of December 2025, and it is a virtual meeting, so no fancy ballrooms for this one. You'll be logging in from your computer. They're mailing out the proxy materials to shareholders around the 1st of December 2025. So keep an eye out for that if you are an investor. The main company we're looking at today is Tron Incorporated. It is important to know who is filing this, and it is for the annual meeting of shareholders. This gives us a timeline for when shareholders were or will be receiving all the important information for the annual meeting. It is all about making sure everyone has enough time to review the details before the big day. So how do you actually join this virtual meeting? Well, you'll need to go to a specific website, https://www.cleartrustonline.com/tron. You need to be a shareholder as of the 18th of November 2025 to participate. They mention that you'll need a control number which you can usually find on your proxy card or through your broker. This is common practice to verify you are a legitimate shareholder. When it comes to voting, you have a few options. You can vote by internet, by mail, or by phone. And of course, you can always vote if you attend the virtual meeting. They encourage you to vote in advance to make sure your voice is heard, even if you end up not attending the meeting virtually. Tron is pretty upfront about how they go about getting those votes. They'll be using their own employees, and they'll also be asking banks and brokers to reach out to shareholders who hold shares in what is called street name, meaning the shares are held by the bank or broker, not directly by the shareholder. This is a pretty standard practice to ensure they get enough votes for the meeting to be official. The reason you are getting all this information is pretty simple. It is to inform you about the matters that will be discussed and voted on at the annual meeting. They've sent out printed versions of these materials, and it is all part of the process to make sure shareholders are informed. If your shares are held by a bank or broker, you are the beneficial owner, but not the record owner. You still get to tell your broker how to vote your shares, so make sure you follow their instructions carefully. They're really pushing for you to vote. They want to make sure those proxies are returned promptly. You can vote via the internet at www.proxyvote.com or by mailing back your proxy card. They also remind you that voting by proxy does not stop you from voting at the meeting if you choose to attend. Now, a little bit of legal housekeeping. Proxies can be revoked. This means if you change your mind after submitting your proxy, you can revoke it. You can do this by sending in a written notice of revocation, or by submitting a new proxy card with a later date, or if you attend the virtual meeting. Your attendance and vote at the meeting will also revoke any previous proxy. This part gets a bit technical, but it boils down to how votes are counted. To have a valid meeting, a majority of the shares that are eligible to vote need to be represented either in person or by proxy. This is called a quorum. When it comes to electing directors, they use what is called a plurality of votes. This means the nominees who get the most for votes will be elected. It is not necessarily a majority, just the most votes. So if you don't vote for a candidate, it won't affect the election of other directors, but it will be counted for quorum purposes. For approving things like their accounting firm, they require an affirmative vote of a majority of the shares represented at the meeting and entitled to vote. So more than half of the votes cast on that specific issue will be needed for it to pass. If you are curious about who the shareholders are, there is a list available for inspection at the company's main office for at least 10 days before the meeting. This is a standard disclosure. Just so you know, Tron is paying for all the costs associated with sending out these proxy materials and soliciting votes. This includes things like printing, mailing, and any fees paid to brokers for their assistance. Now, let's talk about the folks in charge. the board of directors. This section introduces you to the people nominated to serve on the board. They've nominated 5 individuals and they're asking shareholders to elect them. Here are the names being put forward for the board: Richard Miller, Wake Sunday, Christopher Mark Melton, Ji-Hong Liu, and Zi Yang. Richard Miller is the Chief Executive Officer and a director. He's been in that role since November 2020. Before that, he had roles at Jupiter Wellness and also ran a consulting firm. He's been involved in advising companies and even co-founded a sun care product company. He also seems to be involved in school safety initiatives. Wake Sunday is the chairman of the board of directors, a position he took on in June 2025. He has a background in journalism and public infrastructure in China, and more recently has been involved with fintech companies since 2016. He even chaired a listed company on China's NIC. Christopher Mark Melton has been a director since April 2022. He has a pretty extensive background in finance, including roles at Kingdon Capital Management, where he managed a significant portfolio, and at JP Morgan Investment Management. He is also a co-founder of Colligro Investments. It looks like he has got a lot of experience in finance and investment. Ji-Hong Liu joined the board in June 2025. He has been a senior advisor to Tron Inc since 2021. Focusing on investments before that, he had a long career in the financial industry, working for major firms like Ant Financial and Nomura. He also has an MBA from Columbia University. Zi Yang also joined the board in June 2025. He's been active in the blockchain industry for over 5 years and holds senior positions in projects like TronScan, which is the official blockchain explorer for the Tron protocol. The board members are elected annually, and they serve until their successors are elected. Good news on the family front: there are no family relationships between the directors, officers, or major shareholders. This usually means decisions are based on business, not family ties. This section is about reporting requirements for company insiders. It states that based on the information they have, most people have complied with these filing requirements. There is a small mention about Safety Shot Incorporated filing one late report, but that is not directly related to Tron's current filing. This is a crucial point for corporate governance. For a company listed on NASDAQ, a majority of the board must be independent. Independent directors are those who don't have a relationship with the company that could interfere with their judgment. The board has reviewed its members and determined that Messrs. Melton, Liu, and Yang are considered independent. This is important because independent directors are meant to provide an unbiased oversight of the company. To manage different aspects of the business, the board has established committees. These include the Audit Committee, the Compensation Committee, and the Nominating and Corporate Governance Committee. The Audit Committee is made up of Messrs. Melton, Liu, and Yang, with Mr. Melton as the chairman. Mr. Melton is considered an Audit Committee financial expert, which is a designation for someone with significant financial background. This committee's job is to oversee the company's financial reporting, the selection of auditors, and internal controls. They're essentially the guardians of the company's financial integrity. The Compensation Committee, composed of Messrs. Melton, Liu, and Yang, with Mr. Liu as chairman, is responsible for approving executive compensation, reviewing director pay, and overseeing equity incentive plans. They're the ones deciding how much the top executives get paid. This committee, also with Messrs. Melton, Liu, and Yang, with Mr. Yang as chairman, focuses on identifying and recommending director candidates, reviewing committee compositions, and generally overseeing the company's corporate governance practices. They're tasked with ensuring the board is structured and functions effectively. The board as a whole is responsible for overseeing the company's risk management. They receive reports from management and other sources to understand the key risks the company faces and ensure the company's risk taking aligns with their appetite for risk. Management handles the day-to-day risk management, but the board provides the overall direction. Tron has a code of ethics and conduct that applies to everyone, from directors to employees. It is basically a set of rules for how they should behave and conduct business ethically. You can find it on their corporate website. These guidelines provide a framework for how the board and its committees operate. They cover everything from board size and composition to director responsibilities and evaluation processes. This section is like a background check for the directors and officers. It states that to their knowledge, none of them have been involved in serious legal issues like bankruptcies, criminal proceedings, or significant judgments in the past 10 years. This is important for assuring shareholders about the integrity of leadership. Alright, this is where it gets interesting. This is the summary compensation table, and it shows how much the company's top executives were paid in 2023 and 2024. Let's look at Richard Miller, the Chief Executive Officer. In 2023, he earned a salary of $175,000 with a bonus of $50,000, totaling $250,000. In 2024, his salary went up to about $201,979, and he received $25,000 in director fees. bringing his total compensation for that year to $226,979. Next is Douglas O. McKinnon, the Chief Financial Officer. He was appointed in August 2023. In 2023, his salary was about $61,875 with a $25,000 bonus for a total of $99,375. In 2024, his salary was boosted to $181,500 and he got $25,000 in director fees, totaling $206,500. Then we have Taft Flitner, the president. In 2023, his salary was $100,000 and he received about $68,717 in other compensation for a total of $168,617. In 2024, his salary increased to $103,000 and he got about $80,382 in other compensation, for a total of $183,382. These are the details of the employment contracts for the top executives. Richard Miller has a 3-year employment agreement that automatically renews. His starting base salary is $225,000 and it increases by 10% annually. He is also eligible for bonuses based on revenue generated by pre-Tron transaction businesses, with percentages increasing as revenue hits certain milestones capped at $2 million. If his employment is terminated for reasons other than cause, he is entitled to a significant payout, like 2 years of his salary and bonus, or the base salary through the remaining term of the contract. He also has standard benefits like life insurance, sick leave, and is reimbursed for business expenses. He's also signed non-compete and non-solicit agreements. Douglas McKinnon also has a 3-year employment agreement with an automatic renewal. His base salary starts at $215,000, also with a 10% annual increase. His bonus is tied to management's goals and is set at 75% of the CEO's bonus. Similar to Mr. Miller, if he is terminated without cause, he is entitled to a payout equal to 2 years of his base and last year's bonus or the remaining base salary. He also receives standard benefits and has signed non-compete and non-solicit agreements. Taft Flitner's agreement, which started in January 2023, has a base salary of $100,000. He also received 50,000 stock options, which vest over 2 years. His bonus will be based on EBITDA, growth, and other factors determined by the board. He gets similar benefits to the other executives and has also agreed to non-compete and non-solicit terms. In fiscal year 2024, the board held 3 meetings and all directors attended 100% of those meetings. The committee meetings also saw perfect attendance. This shows a solid engagement from the board. Tron has a clear process for shareholders to communicate with the board. You can write to the secretary and your correspondence will be forwarded to the intended director. This ensures your voice can reach the top. Reiterating the independence point, the board has determined that Liu, Melton, and Yang are independent directors following Nasdaq's listing rules. This is a good sign for good corporate governance. Tron has 2 equity incentive plans, the 2023 plan and the 2024 plan. These plans allow the company to grant options and other equity awards to officers, directors, employees, and consultants. Under the 2023 plan, up to 1.5 million shares can be issued, and by the end of 2024, over 1.2 million options had been granted. The 2024 plan has a larger pool of 2.25 million shares, but as of the 31st of December 2024, no awards had been granted under it. This table shows what directors were paid in 2024 and 2023. Richard Miller, Douglas O. McKinnon, Christopher Mark Melton, Gary Herman, and Hans Hayward each received $25,000 in 2024 and $25,000 in 2023. It seems like director compensation has remained consistent. This table summarizes the equity awards outstanding as of the 31st of December 2024. It shows that 1,210,000 securities are to be issued upon exercise or vesting of outstanding awards under the 2023 plan, with a weighted average exercise price of $1.2. There are also 26 150,000 securities remaining available for future issuance under equity plans. This section is about transactions between Tron and people connected to the company, like directors or officers. They have a policy where disinterested board members review and approve such transactions to avoid conflicts of interest. This is a significant related party transaction. On the 16th of June 2025, Wake Sunday, through his entity Brave Morning Limited, bought Series B convertible preferred stock. This stock is convertible into a massive 200 million shares of common stock. Along with the stock, Brave Morning got warrants to buy another 220 million shares. This investment also led to Mr. Sunday becoming chairman of the board. Then, on the 27th of August 2025, Brave Morning exercised those warrants, and the company issued another 220 million shares of common stock. The payment for these shares was a staggering $110 million paid in TRX, a cryptocurrency, so essentially Wake Sunday's entity is now a major shareholder. And his investment has fundamentally changed the company's ownership structure and brought in substantial capital. Tron has a compensation recovery policy, also known as a clawback policy. This means if the company has to restate its financial statements due to errors, they can recover incentive-based compensation paid to executives if that compensation was based on incorrect financial reporting. This is a way to hold executives accountable for accurate financial reporting. This section is mandated by a law called the Dodd-Frank Act, and it asks companies to show how their executive compensation aligns with their financial performance. Let's look at the numbers for Richard Miller, the Principal Executive Officer, or PEO. In 2024, his total compensation reported in the summary compensation table was $397,875, but the compensation actually paid to him was $226,979. For 2023, the reported total was $250,000. And the compensation actually paid was also $250,000. The table shows how compensation actually paid to the PEO compares to total shareholder return and the company's net loss. In 2024, the PEO's actual compensation was $226,979, while the company had a net loss of over $4.3 million. In 2023, the PEO's compensation was $250,000, and the net loss was around $2 million. It looks like their compensation doesn't directly track the company's net loss, which is pretty typical. Compensation actually paid is adjusted from the summary table to reflect things like the fair value of stock awards, and it also takes into account whether those awards were vested or not. Now let's look at the non-PO NEOs, which stands for non-principal executive officers and named executive officers. This group includes other highly compensated executives. In 2024, the average compensation actually paid to this group was $188,088, while the company had that over $4.3 million net loss. In 2023, the average compensation paid was $142,203 with a net loss of about $2 million. Again, there isn't a clear direct correlation between executive pay and the net loss. The pay versus performance section also compares executive compensation to total shareholder return, or TSR. For 2024, the TSR was 12.65%. In 2023, it was 31.12%. This shows how the stock value has changed over time. They're comparing this to the compensation actually paid. You can see that the compensation actually paid to executives doesn't necessarily move in lockstep with the TSR. The report also provides a lot more detail on how compensation actually paid is calculated, which involves looking at the fair value of awards granted and vested, and how those values change from year to year. It is a pretty complex calculation, but the core idea is to get a truer picture of what executives actually received in compensation. This is the shareholder table. It shows who owns the most shares of Tron Inc. Richard Miller, the CEO, owns 1,637,500 shares. Douglas McKinnon, the CFO, has 953,888 shares. Taff Flitner, the president, owns 450,000 shares. But the biggest one here is Wake Sunday. He, through Brave Morning Limited, owns a massive 220 million shares. That is 85% of the company's stock. This confirms that Wake Sunday is now the controlling shareholder after that big investment we discussed. When you add up all the shares owned by officers and directors, they collectively own about 86.2% of the company. This shows that the leadership team has a very significant stake in the company. This report is from the Audit Committee, and it is basically their assessment of how the company's financial statements were prepared and audited. They met with management and the outside auditors, including private sessions without management present, to discuss the financial statements and accounting issues. The Audit Committee plays a critical role in overseeing the company's financial reporting, auditor relationships, and internal controls. They are responsible for ensuring that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Based on their reviews, the Audit Committee recommended to the board that the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended the 31st of December 2024 be included in the company's annual report on Form 10-K. This is the first proposal shareholders will vote on electing directors. They are asking to elect 5 directors to hold office until the next annual meeting. It seems all the current directors are up for re-election. The nominees for director are Richard Miller, Wake Sunday, Christopher Mark Melton, Jiong Liu, and Zi Yang. The board is recommending a vote for all of them. To be elected, the nominees need to receive the largest number of votes cast for their election. As we mentioned, this is a plurality vote. The second proposal is to ratify the appointment of Menkei CPAs PLC as the company's independent registered public accounting firm for the fiscal year ending the 31st of December 2025. This is basically asking shareholders to approve who will audit the company's books for the upcoming year. MBOT has audited them for the past couple of years, so this is a continuation. If shareholders don't ratify the choice, the board will have to reconsider. Looking at the fees paid to Menkei CPAs, they billed $68,274 in 2024 and $65,000 in 2023 for audit services. No other fees were paid to them. These numbers seem quite modest for a public company. To approve this proposal, a majority of the shares represented at the meeting and entitled to vote will need to cast a vote for it. The board of directors unanimously recommends that you vote for this proposal to ratify Menkei CPAs PLC as their accounting firm. This is a standard catch-all. The board doesn't know of any other matters that will come up at the meeting, but if something does, the proxies will vote on it at their discretion. If you have proposals for future meetings, you need to submit them by the 3rd of August 2026 to be considered for inclusion in next year's proxy materials. They also have guidelines if the meeting date changes significantly. This is about how they send out mailings if you live with other shareholders and have your shares held by a broker. They might only send one copy of the proxy materials to your address to save on costs. You can always request separate copies if you prefer. This is another standard statement confirming that they're not expecting any other business to be brought up at the annual meeting other than what is already detailed in the proxy statement. Any additional matters properly presented would be voted on by the proxy holders according to their judgment. They remind you that they file periodic reports with the SEC, which you can access on the SEC's website. They encourage you to review these for more information about the company. The filing is dated the 26th of November 2025, and it is signed by Richard Miller, the CEO and director, on behalf of the board of directors. So, what is the story here? Tron Incorporated is holding its annual meeting, and the big news is the significant investment and resulting control by Wake Sunday and his entity, Braver Morning Limited. This single event has reshaped the ownership landscape of the company, with Sunday now holding a dominant 85% stake. While the compensation for executives seems reasonable and in line with many companies, the most striking figure is the massive increase in capital and ownership. The company is also showing a net loss in recent years, which is common for growth. Focus companies, especially those in tech or blockchain sectors. The relatively low audit fees paid to Menkei CPAs are also noteworthy. It suggests a very lean operation in terms of accounting expenses, or perhaps a focus on core audit services. The commitment of the board members, with perfect attendance in meetings, is a positive sign of engagement in overseeing the company's direction. Looking at the company's direction, the substantial capital injection and concentrated ownership under Wake Sunday suggest a strategy focused on aggressive growth and likely integration within the broader Tron ecosystem. The weakness here is the ongoing net loss, which needs to be addressed with profitability. The opportunity lies in leveraging the new capital and Sunday's leadership to drive revenue and scale. A key risk is the reliance on the current leadership and the potential for future related party transactions, although they do have a process to review these. In conclusion, Tron Incorporated is at a pivotal moment with a new controlling shareholder and significant capital infusion. The focus will be on translating this investment into profitability and sustainable growth. It is a company to watch to see how effectively they utilize these new resources. Alright, that is our deep dive into Tron Incorporated's proxy statement. What are your thoughts on these developments and the company's future? Let us know in the comments below if you found this breakdown helpful. Please give this video a thumbs up and remember to subscribe for more explorations into corporate filings. And don't forget to join our Discord community for continued discussion. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video.